My guest today is Yvonne Solomon, and Yvonne began her career much later than many in the beauty industry, attending cosmetology school at the age of 37. While this may have discouraged some, Yvonne saw it as an advantage. Her life experience and maturity gave her the wisdom to show proper respect for the health and care of hair itself, as well as understanding the individual needs of each client. With over 25 years of experience in the industry, her love and passion for hair has not waned. Through vigorous hair science research, training, and mentorship, Yvonne Solomon now practices as the state of Georgia's number one, first internationally certified trichologist. Her studies helped her gain eyes to see what most stylists couldn't. Hope. So, Yvonne, first of all, I'm going to say welcome to the show. And second, I'm going to say most people, probably including me until I had met you, had never heard of a trichologist. So, why don't you explain to us exactly what that means?
Well, tricho comes from the Greek meaning hair. So a trichologist is someone who specializes, Gail, in the study of hair and scalp disorders. It would be nice if it would just be study of the hair and scalp, but the only time people really seek help is when there is a problem. And I don't have to tell you, in recent years, more and more individuals have been having problems with hair and scalp. And so because it goes so much further than that, because of our culture and the importance we put on appearance, it can be a very serious problem for most individuals.
Well, I can attest to that. I mean, I went through chemo. I lost all my hair. It didn't grow back the way I wanted to. And as a matter of fact, I saw an ad today on television that said, if you experience hair loss because of this particular cancer drug, call us. But I, of course, don't remember what drug they gave me. They gave me so many. Who knows what they gave me? But is it just women that you service, or is it everybody?
You know, one might think it would be just women, but in a world so driven by physical appearance, there are men who struggle with the issue of hair loss too. We know for years men have had problems, and we've made jokes 20 years ago about those individuals who bought rugs. But if you really think about it for a moment, Gail, they knew it didn't look real, but it was more desirable than being hairless. So the issue of how we appear to others, the issue of our youthfulness, all of those things are tied up in hair. I remember as a young stylist, I would laugh and say, oh my goodness, look at this guy. Because let's face it, we would say, oh, I can spot a rug a mile away. You've probably heard people say that.
Absolutely.
Or you'd say, don't they know how it looks? But can you imagine the pain inside of an individual? We're speaking of men now, who look in the mirror every morning several times, and yes, they know how it looks, but that look is far superior to them than walking around with nothing.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I remember my son is now 51, but when he was like in his 20s, he was so worried about losing his hair and being bald, and he was going to get hair transplants and this and that and everything. And now he's bald and he keeps himself bald. And baldness seems to be in now for men, certainly not for women, but certainly for men. And I'm just curious, what is the youngest age that you ever treated somebody? How young was one of your clients?
The youngest client that I've serviced for hair loss, now it was a different type of hair loss, was 18 years old. His father was a doctor. He came in with both of his parents, both his mom and his dad. And he was suffering from not the hair loss you're referring to, which is male pattern hair loss, but he was suffering from hair loss as a result of a dysfunction or malfunction of the immune system, which is a type of hair loss referred to as alopecia areata. So now there are different types of hair loss and there are different causes. And so there might be a variety of reasons why an individual would seek me out. Do I get men who are concerned with their appearance? Yes. But I also get individuals who are concerned because hair loss can oftentimes be one of the first indicators of an underlying health issue.
So, what are some of your greatest challenges in practicing trichology?
Well, really, for me, some of the greatest challenges is having clients follow through, as well as them feeling that it's okay to invest in myself in this level. Because getting to the bottom of what's causing the hair loss is really the key to helping individuals. Or even, Gail, if we get to a point where the hair loss is irreversible, there are still options, cosmetic though they may be, there are still options. But what's challenging is when I have an individual who has a specific problem and they're looking for a quick magic solution, and there is no quick magic solution, especially when there's an underlying imbalance. Like, for example, the young man that I was speaking of, his father had all sorts of resources available to him because he himself was a doctor. The young man was pre-med at Emory University. And yet this situation of his areata had been going on for, I'd say, well, the father said it started when he was 12. But let's face it, a healthy immune system does not attack healthy cells. And that's what alopecia areata is. It's an autoimmune disorder. It manifests in hair loss, but it is something that should be addressed by an endocrinologist, or it has to be addressed internally. And being that I'm not a medical doctor, then I work with the client to try and direct them to the correct specialty that can really, really help them. In that instance, Gail, it wouldn't be a dermatologist because he's dealing with topical things like I am.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to involve nutrition. It would have to involve lifestyle. It would have to involve a lot of different things. And so having someone follow through, as you know, is very difficult.
Well, I'm familiar with alopecia, and I've got a curious question for you. My mom had thinning hair in the front. My sister has thinning hair in the front. I have thinning hair in the front. Is that a form of alopecia, or is that just a heredity type of thing, or where does that come from?
Well, all hair loss can be grouped as alopecia. All that means is hair loss. But in the scheme of things, what you're describing might be something called androgenetic alopecia. So yes, it is driven by the hormones, and it's also driven by hereditary factors. So that's one type of hair loss, whereas alopecia areata is a hair loss associated with a malfunction of the immune system. So all of it is alopecia. It just takes different forms. So being that it has different causes, clearly then it would be addressed differently.
Interesting. So, I'm going to ask you a question. Why did you wait until the age of 37 before getting into this field? I mean, what were you doing before then?
I was having fun, Gail. Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm a child of the 50s. I'm African American. So there are certain expectations of individuals. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know about your generation, but hairdressing was not held out as a desirable career. It wasn't held out as something that an intelligent person would want to do. Now, we know that that's not the case nowadays, but it was almost viewed as like a default career. It's something you did, maybe if you got yourself in trouble, got pregnant, or it was something that you did if you wasn't that good in school, or it was something that you did if there were no options. And so, although I always loved hair, in a way, I was kind of ashamed. I know that may sound insane, but I really was ashamed that that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't pursue it. I did other things. I worked in mental health. I worked with children. Those were acceptable choices. But
that's interesting. Yeah. So what was the trigger that sent you over to being a trichologist?
being happy and comfortable with who I was.
Ah,
That
okay.
takes time. That takes time for you to settle in. And I kind of defended the choice. I didn't tell anyone I was going to the interview, to the school. I didn't even discuss it with my husband. I went to check out the financial arrangements to see what would be involved, to see about transportation. And I kind of dug my heels in and said, you know what? If someone makes a joke, if someone makes a remark, I'm going to move forward, because at that point I was comfortable enough in my own skin that the opinions of others was going to have no bearing on my decision, because it was made. In fact, I'll never forget, when I told my husband what I had done. I said, I checked out this school, I checked out that school. These are the prices. This is what would be involved. This is how long it would take. I said to him, what do you think? And he said to me, sort of glib, well, it seems like you've already made your decision.
Smart man.
And so I kind of stepped back and I said to him, Mick, I'm not asking your opinion and I'm not asking permission. I want to know what you think, how this will affect us, our family, our budget. I want your support. Because, and not to sound arrogant, but you're right, the decision was made. And I was an adult and I wasn't asking permission. But, sometimes when we want something so badly, we don't look at everything.
Right.
And I always respected him as a very insightful man. So I was asking him, did he foresee any issues that maybe I was overlooking? I was asking for his support and his counsel, just to give me direction, not to make my decision, because that was really already made. Now, clearly, if it was going to create some big major problem, which I couldn't foresee because he was not a selfish man, then clearly I would have reassessed. But the decision had been made.
Okay. So, what helped you live your life free of regrets, Yvonne? I mean, you said you were having a ball before you did this, and yet then you decided to do this. So, what helped you along the way to live your life the way you wanted to?
Well, I'm going to tell you the absolute revelation that came to me. Time and perspective. Any decision we make today may tomorrow be viewed with a measure of regret, but we need to let life play out. We need to allow time, because how often have we made a decision, thought it was disastrous, but the end results, even sometimes in subtle ways, did so much for us, helped us to grow. Even if it involved struggle, we wouldn't exchange that decision for all the tea in China, because we benefited. So if we're feeling regretful, we need to step back and not look at things so microscopically. It's almost like, how can I say, looking at trees instead of a beautiful forest. Up close, you see the scuffs, you might see a lightning strike, you might see some bark that's missing. But if you take things in as a whole, and we take our lives in as a whole and not isolate individual experiences, it all contributes
Well,
to the
that's
beauty
true.
of our life.
Well, did you have to go to extra schooling to be a trichologist?
Yes, I did. After practicing for, I guess, maybe about 15 years or so, being an older stylist, I also had clients who would come to me because I took my time, and I had the integrity not to just do services that I felt was not in the best interest of the client. And so I kept seeing problems, and I'm going to tell you, there's nothing more embarrassing than have a client say to you, why am I losing my hair? And you don't have an answer. Now, I had become very adept at doing extensions and weaves and doing things to camouflage hair loss. But to be asked why and not have an answer, I can still remember sweating under my armpits because I didn't know what to say. And that is such an unpleasant, uncomfortable position to be in for someone who views themselves as knowledgeable in a field and you can't